Lots of you guys have asked Tom, when are you going to review Shadows of Brimstone? And Tom's reply always was, no, because I'd have to put the miniatures together. So I said, Tom, if you want, I could put the miniature together and you can review the game. No, wasn't going on. Wasn't going to happen. So I took it upon myself to do a review on Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients. Now, I'm also going to be talking about Swamps of Death and everything else in this review. So we're going to cover everything, and we're even going to cover some of the really cool expansions. Now, if you saw earlier this week, I did a review on the figures. The one thing I failed to mention there was that the expansions went together a lot easier. There were a lot of expansions to this and a lot of things that are out on retail that are really, really pretty nice and went together. It seems like the two box sets were the problems with the miniatures. But how's the gameplay? Is it forgiving? Does it give in to these kind of okay miniatures that came with the box sets? I guess there's only one way to find out. Let's go to the table and check it out. Okay, here we are down at the table. Now, going through this, there is no way I can cover every rule, but I am going to do my very best to give you guys a feel of what is going on with this game. And we'll talk in detail as much as I can. Now, every time you start the game, you have to pick a character. Now, this is a role-playing game in a lot of ways. You're going to see a lot of numbers here. Agility, cunning, spirit, and we'll zoom in on this a bit so we can really cover this extensively. Spirit, strength, lore, luck, initiative, that's a big number. You have certain type of abilities that you start off with, and it has a starting item that you'll start with, a weapon. Your combat, how many times you can attack. You can attack twice with the combat number. And then there's this thing called grit. Grit is a token that you get, and the more grit you have, those are considered rerolls. So every time you earn a grit, you can use it for certain abilities or rerolls. Now, you have your health and your defense, and then your sanity and your willpower. Either one of these numbers go out, you are considered KO'd. And then you roll on an injury chart to see if you live or die. And that, believe me, there is a lot of rolling in this game. Now, as you can see, we have the saloon girl here, and of course she comes with a model. And she has a pistol. It has a range of 3. Now, what does that range of 3 mean? That means that if she is here, she can target anything 3 squares away. One shot means that she can roll one die. Now let's talk about movement. When moving, you roll a d6, and as you can see, I got a 2. You are allowed to move 2. There are items that make it where you can move more, which would be +1. But anytime you roll a 1 on your movement, you would get a grit. And a grit is basically like a reroll, and you have a certain maximum that you can carry, but they also help you reroll dice during the adventure. Now, you'll also see that we have here is called a depth chart. Okay? Now, as you can see, there's a 7+, an 8+, and a 9+. At the beginning of every turn, you have to make a check for what is called a check for the growing darkness. And that is the growing darkness within the mine that you're going through. And what happens here is you'll roll 2 dice, such as I just did now, and I have a 7. As long as I have a 7 and higher, this does not move. If I was to roll a 4, this would move. Now, every time it goes onto one of these blood splatters, we would draw a card from the darkness. And there is a darkness pile. And when you turn these over, something really, really bad happens. Either monsters get bonuses, or you may get a bonus every once in a while, or something, you might get sneak attack. There's all kinds of just nasty things that happen. Now, every time you add or go into another room, this moves. And when you go on to what is called growing dread, guess what? That's correct. You will draw a growing dread. And these things add to what can happen within the dungeon. And they are not nice. Believe me. They either make the monsters even more powerful and make your trip even harder. Now, the whole idea of going down in this dungeon is to hunt for Darkstone and find out what's going on. And there's different scenarios that explain a whole backstory and a wonderful story that's put together on this to just go through everything. Now, as you can see here, I have 3 types of decks. Depending on how many players are playing, there is a low threat, a medium threat, a high threat, and of course the epic threat. And usually when you see the epic threat, that means you're usually at the end of the dungeon, and that's when you see one of the bigger monsters. So let's say that the saloon girl has made it to the edge of our map here, and she wants to explore another room. Well, what do? Yeah, we turn over a map exploration card, or the map deck, and boom. What happens is you now add this piece, which is really fit well and very well put together, by the way. And as you can see, it has the numbers, and we'll zoom in real close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You would roll a die, and on a 5 or 6, that's where the exit would be. So we would be able to exit out of this room. And the real neat thing is they have little end caps so you can close off the room. So that would be the exit. Also, upon entering a room, we would take one of the many exploration unseen tokens and put it in the middle here. At which time we would turn over and we would see an attack. And that means that our heroes are being attacked. Now, these explanation points are for different things that happen in the dungeon and during the campaign, as well as what might be happening on that particular scenario. You might have to collect a number of these as almost like a waypoint. Now, because we drew an attack, depending on how many players that we have, we would decide to draw from the high, low, or medium deck for our encounter. And what would happen, of course, is we would turn it over and we would pull out and put down how many enemies there are. But for sakes here, instead of me going through all this deck, why don't we just say a bunch of these nasty, ugly tentacles would come out. Now, in this case, when the enemies come out, because everything is driven by AI, and that's what makes this game really neat, is that you can play cooperatively and really go at it. Or, you know, you can have somebody that just kind of sits there and draws the deck for you and does all the placement. But enemies are placed in a checkerboard fashion. So what would happen is we would start from here, and then, of course, everything would be checkerboarded onto the board. From there, everything is ran off initiative. Now let's talk a little bit about combat while we're here. And we'll take a look at the monster cards. Because these things, I'll tell you, you get these oversized cards which are just superb. Okay? Now, as you can see, we have the size of the particular monster. And we'll zoom in on this a bit so we can get a real good look at it. And we could talk a bit about it. We have the initiative, the size of the monster, any kind of special ability that it has, its type of to hit, so it has no range, but it can melee, so it has to be right next to our heroes. If you want to escape, you would have to roll 4+. It moves 6. It has a combat of 3, which means it rolls 3 dice, and if it hits, it does 3 damage per dice. Now, defense. This is where we talk a bit about combat. So let's talk a little bit about combat, and I'll show you how it works very quickly. Let's just say, for sake, that we have one of these guys up against our girl here. And let's bring it into the camera so we can see, because as always, why edit it when I can just keep talking about it, right? Now, we're going to zoom out a bit here. Alright, so here we have our enemy, and let's pull out our saloon girl. And here we have the saloon girl. Now, her initiative is a 5, and the monster's initiative is a 2. So she would get to go first because it extends from 6 all the way down to 1. Now, she has a melee of 4. She can do 2 combats. So, if she was just using melee, she would roll 1 dice and would have to exceed 4. She gets a 5. Now, she would also have to roll again against the defensive value. So, they have an automatic defense of 2 and a health of 4. So, she would need to get... Oh, she got a 2. So, the monster was able to absorb 2. But let's say she rolled a 6. You would take away the 2 and then take away the 4 health, because you absorbed a 2 with 2 and that remainder of 4, and then you would do 4 damage, and that would kill the monster. And you would get 30 XP for killing the monster. Now underneath on this chart is elites. Now there are different things that call for elites, and you would roll on this chart to give these monsters an elite ability, which makes them even nastier. Not to mention, on the other side of the card, there is a brutal side, and that's for even a harder experience against these guys. So these monsters are very, very, very skilled. Now, on this side, there's 2 types of damage that you can take. You can take physical damage, or you can take horror damage. Some of our Growing Dread cards, our Darkness cards, cause horror damage, or corruption. Corruption, you would get a token, and it would, if you get enough of them, you would mutate. But that's for the campaign. And I'm trying to just give you as many different rules and things that can happen, and show you how deep this game can really, really, really get. There are certain encounter cards, but let's just say, for the sake of everything, that she clears everything off, okay, and kills everything. Well, at the end of combat, she would get a loot card, and some of them have gold, or some of them have a way to get gear or artifacts. And you would collect these, and they would actually help you out. There'll be different weapons that you can get. Also, she'd have the ability to use her pistol as well, which gives you different types of abilities. Like for this, criticals are on a 5 or 6. Now, one thing I forgot to, well, I didn't explain, that if you roll a 6 at any time, that is a critical, and it ignores the defense value. So the defense value, so say she rolled a 6 and then she rolled a 4, we wouldn't have to worry about the defense, because the critical takes out the defense value, and the monster would absorb the full 4, and she would get hurt. On this side, if the monster was to attack, he would get 3 combat dice, which is pretty nasty. So let's get 3 combat dice and let's see what would happen. We're going to roll here, and the monster needs, in a melee, 4+. So all 4 pluses hit. In this case, he would have missed on all 3. But let's just say we roll again, and we get 2 5s. So this is a miss, so she has 2 hits against her, which would be 6 damage, and that's a lot of damage. But she has a defense value of 3, so she would roll 2 dice, and she got a 3 and a 6, which means she would take no hits whatsoever. Anytime you use up all your health or all your sanity, you are considered knocked out, and then you will miss a turn, and then you would come back at a certain amount of health. There are different types of things that you can get to the game to heal yourself, but I think you pretty much get the gist of how combat goes. Now, let's move on and talk about role-playing and going back to town. Alright, it's now time to talk a little bit more deeper about this game and how great a game this is. After you finish your adventure, you need to come back and all the objectives you made, all the experience that you had, all the gold you had, you could come back to town here and actually explore the town. Because this is where you're going to level up and you're going to take your experience, your gold and stuff like that, and you're going to go around town. Now, it starts where you can only spend 6 days in town. So every day that you go, you can do one thing. So on the first day, say you want to go to the general store, and the general store has its own card that you will actually have to roll for the minute you get into the general store. So you would get into the general store here, and what would happen is you would roll on this chart. If you got a 2 on 2d6, it's closed. If you got 12, you would get all kinds of different abilities, or there's a fire sale, or maybe sometimes things cost more if you roll a 4 or 5. Also in the general store on the back, you can buy all kinds of things if you have the money. You can buy better weapons, hats, clothing, equipment that'll help you through your next adventures. This has a campaign level. It's even dangerous to leave the mine and go back to town. You have to actually roll on charts. Now, after you got done with your business at the general store, if you decide to stay for free at the campsite, you would have to roll on a chart and something bad can happen. Or you can pay $10 per day to stay in a hotel where you don't have to roll on anything. But after you go back, you have to stay the night, and then this would move up. And you would roll on a D6. On a 4, it's safe. You can go through another day and you don't have to roll on a particular chart. There's a chart that actually has it where you can go through and run into some really bad things if you roll underneath. So you want to get all your business with your group done as fast as possible. So you can't just sit here and hang out all day. You can sell the dark stone that you find. You're going to find dark stone in the mine. You're going to have gold. Maybe you got some injuries or mutations. You can go to the doctor's office and possibly get them healed. You can take dark stone and forge it into some of your weapons to create and even make different type of bullets and stuff like that, which can really help you out. You can buy horses. You can go to the saloon and get different types of herbs or whiskey, which will help you with madness. You can heal madness or cure corruption that you can get all the way through. You have to be very quick and very detailed, because the higher you go, there's a chance that you can end up rolling on that chart and some bad stuff happens. When you get back to town, you reset, and then you get ready for your next adventure, and you go back out. Now, on those cards, like you saw that I had for her, what I did was I downloaded this from Board Game Geek, and this is how we keep track of everything that we do. Because every time we kill something, it's important to know how many that we killed, because in one of the stores you can get a bounty for whatever you killed. You have to keep track of your experience so you can level up, how much cash you have, how much corruption you have. And there's a chance that as you level up, there's a chart to level up, that you will increase your health, your defense, or willpower, or even your sanity. And then you have a saddlebag that you can carry 5 things. Like right now I have 2 bandages, because boy, you're going to need some health in some of these dungeons, because it is nasty. And of course, let's talk about the adventure book itself. Beautiful, and the rule book. Both of them just very beautiful and very well put together. Color pages, explains everything in detail. You only have to read it once and you understand it. It's very, very, very well put together. And we were up and playing within 20 minutes. And there's just so many wonderful guides out there to help you through, but this manual really, really puts it there for you and gets you going. And the adventure book, this is where you're going to get all your adventures and do your leveling up. It shows you all the monsters that come with the City of Ancients. and then you can go, and you can also warp to different areas. There's a gate that you can end up going to the Targa Plateau, and there's missions out there. So much comes in just one of these boxes. I ended up getting both, and I almost think I have too much. But I don't think you can ever have too much. It shows the experience. And the best part here is taking a look and rolling on a chart. Each time that you go up and you experience, you get to roll on a chart, and you can add to your strength, your lore, your sanity, your health. And then you also get a tree here that you get to pick an ability for each time that you go up in a level. So say you pick an acrobatic skill the first time you leveled up. Well, the next time you play, you'll be able to pick any of these top 3, but also you would be able to pick up in the second row the ability down here. And as you grab more abilities, you expand and get better and better, and you become more powerful and level up. And then, of course, there's just tons of missions. You can roll random missions. You can create your own missions. And it's just very, very detailed, and just surprisingly when you get done with one, you want to go on to the next one. And they do average anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to do. So after getting done playing 3 hours, you do kind of want to, you would think you would not want to take a break, but I'll be honest with you, we found ourselves wanting to play the next mission. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. There's a lot I didn't cover, but I tried to give you just a good gist of what's going on in this game. Let's go back up top and get my final thoughts. Okay, so we all know that I am a big sucker for any kind of dungeon crawl, anything. Now, I started playing this game, and the first thing I'm thinking, westerns. I'm not a big western guy. I do like watching westerns, but I'm not somebody that wants to play cowboys and Indians. Well, that quickly changed because I really got immersed into this game. Now, the base set, if you saw Board Game Breakfast, you heard me talk about these miniatures. They're not the greatest miniatures. In the base sets, I found that when I got the expansions that they were 100% better. They were easier to put together. They were molded a lot better. And some of the stuff is just really, really, really good. And I really enjoyed putting it together and getting it painted up. This game, very deep. It's a lot of role playing. If I have anything negative to say about it is the models for the base set. Both base sets, the models were kind of tough to put together, and if you're a beginner and don't have any modeling skill, you will easily get frustrated with this. Because I've put together so many things for so many years, it wasn't that bad. I was disappointed with some things. I cleaned some things up, and they still didn't go together right. The other thing, so you end up rolling a real lot of dice in this. Even the move, you have to roll the dice, and sometimes that can become skewed and make it even tougher to get through this mine. Everything you have to roll on a chart. You have to roll the fight. There's a lot of dice, and if you're not one that likes relying on dice rolls, this may not be for you, and it just might be a little bit too much dice rolling for some people. All in all, though, when I played this, I got sucked in. We got sucked into the role-playing aspect, the fun of it, the battling. It's easy to operate the AI, where basically everything's coming at you. The cards dictate everything. They do a great job at making things go bad and making things go good. And that is a really cool aspect of it. This is a great game. The expansions add so much. There's so much more coming out for it. It's turning out to be a monster game, and a game that I really, really, really enjoy. The only negatives I took away were, of course, like I said, the models and a lot of dice rolling. So I'm going to give this a very, very high 8. And I wish I can give it more. It's everything I want a role-playing the game to be. The thing I wish this was in fantasy or sci-fi Or this would actually replace Warhammer Quest on my all-time list. And I would probably give it away. That's how much I adore this game, and I think this is such a great game. It is probably one of the best games I played in a long, long time as far as dungeon crawls are considered. And it is very high on my list. I recommend it. I love it. The models do not take away from the game. They add to the game. And even though, everything's not as detailed, you get just so sucked into your character. You name them. It's like playing D&D, but there's no dungeon master in a way. And it's just so thematic and everything going for it. I even like the Cthulhu feel to it, with darkness and sanity and losing your sanity and stuff like that. Just a fantastic, fantastic game. I suggest you go out and you try it. I think you'll enjoy it. Pick up the expansions. They're wonderful. This is a great game, and I'm just very, very happy to review this, for finally to have it up on the Dice Tower for everyone to see. So, that's this week's review. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week with the next one. Until next time, I'm Rob Oren. Have a great week.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.